Hello, everyone. I'm Kevin.
And I'm Russell.
And welcome to the KR Show. This is our In Your House 8 Beware of Dog episode. This was actually, I had recommended Capital Combat 90 to you, and you had recommended this.
I recommended Beware a Dog mainly because there's so much.
You hate me.
Not because I hate you, and not because I hate the listeners, but there's just so much to unpackage with this show.
He does. He hates all of us.
Some of you probably, maybe, but still listen because we need that. But anyway, there's so much to unpackage with this show because this is something that it happened for the first time ever, and to my knowledge has never happened again. But it wasn't even the fault of the WWE. It wasn't anything they were trying to do. They had a storm that happened the night of this pay-per-view, so the power went out after the first match that aired on pay-per-view and stayed out until the main event. So they had to refilm the in-between matches 2 nights later on a Tuesday, since they have Monday Night Raw on Mondays.
Yeah. That had to be weird to have your pay-per-view. And then after that, you've got your Monday Night Raw, where you can't really talk about everything that happened because odds are people didn't see those matches. They had to wait until the next night. So that had to throw off all of their creative plans for Raw that night.
One thing that was, I did not get all of the dark matches listed, but one thing that kind
Most of them were dark.
Most of them were dark, but
the power was out.
One thing that kind of threw me off was, like, looking at it from night 1 to night 2, some of the people, like Shawn Michaels, for example, his match with Bulldog was aired, so they didn't have to redo that match. So Shawn wrestled Goldust, or not Goldust, it was maybe Owen Hart, but Shawn wrestled somebody in a dark match on night 2. They still put him on the show, even though he had that match with Bulldog on night 1 that was apparently part of the pay-per-view. Okay,
yeah. So night 2, I don't see the... Oh, well, we'll cut that part. Yeah, so let's... You all can watch this. You can watch In Your House 8, Beware of Dog, on Peacock. I remember watching this on the WWE Network before they switched everything over, and you could actually see the matches that happened in the dark.
Really? They showed that?
Uh-huh. Yeah, they hadn't cut it. This makes me think that this was maybe a thing for Peacock. I could be wrong, but I do know that there was a time when you could watch these matches with the lights out. So you could barely see Savio Vega and Steve Austin fighting. And, it wasn't fun to watch, obviously. So I get why they went back and they chopped, those matches out and then replaced them with the do-overs.
That makes sense, because I was going to say, was it enjoyable watching it compared to what you watched having with the lights on?
Overall, it wasn't enjoyable to watch. This may be when we were suggesting shows that we should watch, and I suggested Capital Combat. That was because I like you. Okay, you're my friend. But then when you suggested Beware of Dog, I'm like, okay, I vaguely remember this show, and then I watch it. And I'm like, God damn it, Russell must hate me. Why are we watching this? This was a chore to sit through. I know I'm already giving the review before we even got in the matches. But wow, this was so drawn out and boring and uninspired for the most part. There were moments of brilliance, okay? But those were few and far between.
The one and only title change of the night also happened on the pre-show, on the free-for-all that they called it at that time.
Yeah. What was that?
The Godwins won the tag titles. Or no, the Godwins lost the tag titles to the Smoking Guns because Sunny switched sides. Sunny was with the Godwins, and then she went with the Guns, which made a lot more sense for her character.
Yeah. So she went from a a fitness instructor. Follow the logic here. She was a fitness instructor. She became a farmer.
To a cowgirl.
To a cowgirl.
But the outfits were more aesthetically pleasing as the cowgirl than the farmer.
What was the outfit when she was a farmer?
I think she just still dressed normal, but the cowgirl outfit was not terrible.
No, yeah. So I'm gonna, in the Google machine here, Sunny and the Godwins WWF. Is there a picture that we can see of?
That was the night she cost them the belts.
No, that looks like
Maybe
that's
that wasn't, but
Zip or Skip.
yeah.
That's still her fitness instructor get up. I don't know. There doesn't. Oh, wait a minute. Wait, is that?
Yeah, she still was kind of the fitness instructor.
Huh. Well,
They probably figured that overalls wouldn't look
maybe not. Maybe
sex symbolish for her.
there was a creative decision where they were like, we're not going to put Sonny out in overalls, pal. God damn it. But then, hey, making her a cowgirl. Teenage Russell was all over that.
I will neither confirm nor deny that.
Will you confirm or deny the existence of a Sonny poster?
There was probably like 8 of them, honestly.
8 of them. Wow. At some point, you're going to run out of wall.
That's probably what happened.
Yeah. Jeez. Man, oh man. You didn't even know what color your walls were.
Not really. They were just Sunny, wrestling, Cardinals. I think there was a couple Cardinals posters too.
But mostly Sonny.
Mainly Sunny.
Yeah. So yes, I didn't enjoy this show very much. Did you?
I really didn't. And
Okay.
watching it back, because I'd seen it shortly after it happened. I watched it somewhere. I don't remember how I watched it because I didn't watch it on pay-per-view. I think whenever you could get the DVDs and stuff later, right after they came out, I watched it then. And I didn't really enjoy it then. It's just kind of like how this event happened was worth covering, I felt like.
Yeah. It's definitely like an important moment in wrestling history because, like you said, nothing like this, to my knowledge, has happened on this big of a scale where you have an entire pay-per-view set up and you've built towards this important event, and then nature screws everything up. And because of a huge storm in the area, your power gets cut out and you didn't count on the building having a backup generator. So you're basically screwed. You've got, all these fans that probably want refunds, and they ended up, like you had said, redoing 3 of the matches. I think 3 of them.
3 of them, yeah.
3 of them 2 days later, but the distance between Florence, South Carolina, which was the original location of In Your House 8, Beware of Dog, and North Charleston, South Carolina, which was the location of the makeup, is about 2 hours. So you would have to drive 2 hours to
Watch 3 matches, presumably.
that you already paid to see but couldn't 2 days prior. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. If I was a fan, I would have been upset. But again, it's not WWF's fault. It was definitely the building's fault because that building should have had a backup generator. And that's the reason Bruce Pritchard said they didn't go back to Florence for anything televised. They went there for house shows, but they didn't go there for, which is, I guess, in Bruce Pritchard's mind, it's okay if the power goes out when the cameras aren't rolling.
I guess that kind of makes sense.
Oh, there's people, the power went out at a wrestling show. It was a house show? Fuck them. Who cares? But Conrad Thompson, who was interviewing Bruce for their podcast, said that he thought the reason they didn't go back was because the attendance wasn't great. Wasn't great. So Conrad Thompson was interviewing Bruce Pritchard for their podcast, and he said that the reason he thinks that WWF didn't go back to Florence for any televised event was because the gate was so low. The gate for the event was $63,435. For a wrestling show at that time, that's very low.
That is.
But it's still up from the year before.
Which that says a lot from the year before with the New Generation era.
Yeah, and the New Generation, I mean, I don't know what you thought of it like overall, but like critically, a lot of people just dunk on it.
I felt like it was kind of hokey, and I also felt like it was counterproductive in the mind of someone that would be in the wrestling business, because almost everybody that was in the WWE at that time, or WWF, was billed as having a second job. Like their gimmick was like they had a second job. So in my mind, that would pretty much say, well, we can't afford to live off of a WWE salary, so we got to be a trash man or a race car driver or a toilet plunger.
A toilet plunger.
A toilet plunger guy.
What's the annual salary, do you think, given inflation in 1996 for a toilet plunger? Do you think?
Probably not a lot.
Probably not very much. No, because it's an inanimate fucking object, and it's not a real
plumber.
person.
That's
a plumber. There we go. Thank you. Plumber. Parentheses.
Toilet plunger.
Toilet plunger. That's a good point. I thought it was weird that a lot of these wrestlers had second jobs, and it felt to me like Vince McMahon had already made his mind up about the future prospects of certain wrestlers on his roster before they had even started, by giving them these gimmicks, right? So like Duke the Dumpster Droese.
And top stars, if you put it like that, it makes sense, because the top guys, or what you would consider the top guys at the time, didn't have that. They just had the over-the-top personalities.
Right. So maybe that was his way of saying, okay, well, all the lower card guys and jobbers are going to have these types of characters, while the bigger stars in the company are the only ones who are allowed to have a personality.
That could make sense.
Yeah, I mean, it does just kind of doom these wrestlers from the start.
It does.
Unless you're Jeff Jarrett.
Jeff Jarrett made it work. I think my one I hated the most, which I think this would be a perfect for a show sometime to talk about this, but was the Goon. Just because not only does his gimmick suck, but you could never be a champion with his finish, because it was like a body check into the ring post outside, so he won by count out.
Yeah, which totally smells like they wanted a hockey player character, okay? And did you remember his boots?
They looked like skates.
They looked like skates, but they were wrestling boots with lifts in them. Mm-hmm. Okay, and then they were like, okay, we wanted a hockey player wrestler. What's his finishing move? Well, nothing else fits. But the only thing physical that we could do that a hockey player would do is to check someone. Run at them and check them with their shoulder. Yeah, cool. All right, that's the finish. I don't remember seeing that finish a lot, so that makes me think that he probably didn't win very much.
He didn't. I only remembered a few times on Superstars with a couple jobber characters, but I don't think he ever made it much after that anyway.
Yeah, whenever WWE would reference the New Generation before the Attitude Era and they wanted to dunk on it, they always showed footage of the Goon.
They did.
And Howard Finkel saying, "It's the Goon," and he's got the corny hockey music playing in the background to show that, like, this is how lame things used to be, and then we made everything cool in 97. So things were definitely not cool here.
No.
In the beginning of the summer of 1996 for Beware of Dog. And the tagline for this. You know what the tagline for this
I
show
don't
was?
remember what the tagline was,
It's Vader time.
which doesn't really make sense because yes, he was on the show, but he wasn't even a predominant.
It has nothing to do with dogs.
No.
You know, the whole point of Beware of Dog was to,
Push Davey.
right, it was to reference the story between Davey Boy Smith and Shawn Michaels and how Shawn Michaels better watch out because now Davey Boy Smith is super pissed off at him because Michaels flirted with his wife, Diana, who is a Hart sister. She was Bret's sister. Because all those sisters of
Married
Bret's
wrestlers.
ended up marrying wrestlers like Jim Neidhart, Davey Boy Smith, I think
Dynamite Kid.
Dynamite Kid, yep. Yeah, so this was also an interesting event because Bret Hart wasn't on it. And at the time, Bret was a really big star. Even after he lost the world title to Shawn Michaels at that year's WrestleMania.
He was still pretty predominantly shown on pay-per-views. And this one, they really didn't use him, which with what the card was, they could have used him.
Yeah, I probably would have made this thing a lot more entertaining because Bret was very good at making chicken salad out of chicken shit.
Pretty much.
You know, because you could put him in the ring with almost anybody at that time, and he's going to find a way to get a good match out of them because, you know, to Bret, he didn't want to look bad also. So if he had to work a little extra hard to make sure that you looked good so he could look good, he would have done it. Bruce Pritchard had said that Bret wasn't on this show because he had asked for time off after WrestleMania 12. He believed that it was so that Bret could film Lonesome Dove and do Sinbad. And I think Bruce was incorrect. I don't think it was Sinbad. I think it was Aladdin. I think Bret was in the play Aladdin.
He was, yeah.
Yeah, because he had really got into acting at that point. And Bruce said he wanted to spend time with his family and, you know, do other projects and stuff, and that the time off had been approved by Vince. That's cool and all, you know, but it definitely, the company suffered a little bit with him being gone.
It did.
Yeah. And Bruce had also said something else that was interesting, and I don't know if you agree with this, but he said that it made it easier for Shawn Michaels to get over with Bret being gone.
I would probably agree with that because at the time they were both babies and Bret was a top guy, Shawn was a top guy, and when you had two top stars like that, fans had to kind of, I guess, split their love.
Yep.
But if Shawn's the big star, he gets it all.
Yeah, that's why you don't do a lot of babyface versus babyface matches, is because the whole point of, you know, all of this stuff, if you're a wrestling promoter, booker, you know, whatever, is that you want everyone to get over as much as they possibly can so that your show is as good as it possibly can be. And whenever you do babyface versus babyface, the fans choose who they like more. And then that ends up making one of the guys seem less than. Now, you can do it every now and then. Obviously, in the case of Michaels and Bret with the 1 hour Iron Man match at WrestleMania that year, that was great.
That was solid, and I think that one worked just because like everybody was kind of behind. That was Shawn's big moment. So
Right.
even if you were a Bret Hart fan, you were hoping, you know, there's that feel good moment when Shawn won the belt.
Mm-hmm.
But once that's done and over with, then it's back to business as usual. You're a Bret Hart fan or you're a Shawn Michaels fan.
Right, which they would end up playing off of better after Bret would come back.
It worked out.
Yeah, because then they started planting the seeds with him being a heel with the Hart Foundation. But Pritchard had also said that this time after WrestleMania 12 was a rebuilding phase where they were trying to get Shawn Michaels established as a top babyface and world champion. And I think this was probably a rough start to that. given that this was, I believe, a month after WrestleMania. And it just, he really needed people that he could work with that were going to, he was going to be able to get the best out of. And as good as Shawn Michaels was, and I would like to hear your thoughts on this, as good as Shawn Michaels was, he wasn't as good as Bret Hart at getting the best out of the worst.
He definitely wasn't, like, and it's no fault of his in this instance because, well, I don't know it. I know Davies had a history of drugs and everything, and he was not his right mind, or he wasn't himself given his full potential in most of his big matches. So Shawn had to pull something different out of someone that looked like $1 million and wasn't terrible in the ring, but his life choices made his in-ring work not as solid, which is probably why he never won the big one.
Yeah, he was totally not consistent at all, because there are some British Bulldog matches that are like really good. And there are some, like the one we watched at Beware of Dog, that maybe weren't as good. And, we'll get into more detail about that match here in a little bit. But something else that was strange was that on the first night of Beware of Dog, where they had the power outage, they had two matches that happened after the cameras stopped rolling and the show was over. They had Ahmed Johnson and Jerry Lawler, and they had the Ultimate Warrior against Owen Hart.
Which on paper, Warrior and Hart sounds like it should be on pay-per-view compared to some of these other people.
Yeah, I would have just thought that match should have been on pay-per-view because the Ultimate Warrior was in it, and they had already been paying Ultimate Warrior a ton of money to come back. And here's a pay-per-view. You think you'd want to get the most out of your investment because you're already paying this guy a fortune. And then you give him a dark match that no one's ever going to see after that night.
And they only went like 4 minutes. So if you're only going 4 minutes, you might as well give them that TV time.
Yeah, and Bruce was asked that question by Conrad, why not put Warrior on the pay-per-view? And Bruce had said that WWF wanted to hold something back and not put everything on the In Your Houses. And to me, that sounds like a cop-out. That sounds like an excuse. Yeah, you don't want to, put every cool thing you can imagine onto one event. You want to save something for next time. But the Ultimate Warrior and Owen Hart wasn't going to be this like groundbreaking barn burner, of a match.
No.
That you would need to hold off for another time. Put it on the show.
Owen was going to bump his ass off for the Warrior, and the Warrior was going to hit his splash, shake some ropes, and go home.
Exactly. Something else that hurt WWF at the time was that on May 8th, WCW announced that Nitro was going to go to 2 hours the night after this WWF event. So the night after Beware of Dog, WCW Nitro had its first 2-hour show.
Which kind of started their seeds of actually becoming the bigger show.
Right. Yeah. Because this had to wrestling fans at the time, and I know to me, I mean, even though we were teenagers during this, it did seem like WWF had slipped. Because we had to watch a lot of, the Goon and the Godwins and the Body Donnas and all this other stuff. And then this happens. And then, whatever hope that we had that, WWF was going to like pull out of this, it seemed pretty dire.
It did. It didn't seem like seeing some of those guys that you mentioned when you would see them on you mentioned the Body Donnas, seeing Skip, because I'd never really seen him before. I was like, yeah, this guy's not that great. But watching Chris Candido in ECW was like, why couldn't we have gotten this version of him?
Right.
But they wanted him to be the hokey fitness instructor.
Yeah. And if I had to put on my tinfoil conspiracy theory hat and guess why Vince McMahon would do something like that, which on the outside could seem against all common sense and logic, to use somebody in a way that makes them less entertaining than they could be. It would be that he didn't want a lot of these new stars that he's bringing into the company to outshine the people that he actually wanted to push.
Care about.
Right. I can understand that. As good as Candido was, he was not like a really strong talker.
He wasn't. His mic skills were weak.
Yeah. So if he's out there doing cooler stuff than Shawn Michaels, it's kind of confusing, because as a fan, you're watching that and you go, wow, he's really cool. I bet he's really entertaining to listen to.
Not at all.
Not really. No disrespect to Chris, because Chris was great. But he definitely didn't have that larger than life persona that you needed to, be a big star in America. Okay, you want to jump into the show?
Let's go ahead and jump into the show.
Okay. What was the first match?
The first match was Mark Marrow versus Hunter Hearst Helmsley.
Yeah. Oof. This one was, when I said this was a chore to sit through, this is one of the reasons why. Triple H, came out to the ring with a woman. I don't think they gave her a name.
I don't think they gave her a name.
No, but she was supposed to be Sable's replacement, because Sable had left Triple H and went with Mark Marrow, who at the time, she was not married to Brock Lesnar. Oh man, how old would Brock have been?
I don't know.
Okay, well, you talk about this match. I'm going to look up how old Brock Lesnar would have been when Sable was...
At that time.
Yeah.
Well, as far as the match went, it was Triple H versus Mark Marrow. Match-wise, there wasn't very much good on this show. So this match wasn't that great, but I didn't think it was the worst of the matches that were on there. Also, one thing I didn't like was most of the matches on this show had weird endings.
Yes.
And
also, Brock Lesnar was 19.
Brock Lesnar was 19 at this time.
Yeah, so he probably would have seen Sable and been like, nice.
Probably.
Nice. He would have never known that,
He was going to marry her.
He was going to marry her and have kids with her. And steal her away from the wild man, Mark Marrow.
The one thing I did not like about this match, and I think this is what hurt the match, was it was long. It went way too long. If they would have went in, got to the point, those two guys are good enough that they could have pulled out a 6 to 8 to 10 minute match and been good. But I think it was like 10, 15, I think it was about 15 minutes.
Yeah, it was rough. This match ended up being like 16 minutes. And the promo before the match didn't do anything to like get me excited.
No.
Marrow was in the back with Sable and Doc Hendricks, formerly Michael Hayes. And he just starts spitting out these catchphrases like answer the call of the wild and welcome to the jungle. And it's like, yeah, we get it. You're wild, but to me, it's like I wanted Johnny B. Bad, because when he was Johnny B. Bad in WCW, that was much, much better than the wild man, Mark Marrow.
I agree with that. I liked Johnny B. Bad a lot more.
One of the things, to me, one of the things that distracted me from this match and made it less fun to watch was that insane woman screaming through the entire match.
She was screaming like in the crowd, right?
This was a fan.
Yeah.
This wasn't Triple H's valet. This wasn't Sable. This was nobody that had a name or any identity at all. It was a fan who had paid money to come to that show, and she was screaming bloody murder, not at anything that was happening in the match, She just seemed to, even during the lulls of the match where no action was happening, just screaming at the top of her lungs.
She got her money out of that match.
Oh my God. It was, I'm surprised that like no one found her and kicked her out.
It was definitely distracting.
Yeah. Like I would only imagine how distracting it was to the wrestlers. Some of them you could see actually like turn to look at the direction of where
she was at.
from,
Yeah.
and they looked visibly annoyed. I think you got to see that a little bit here. I know Davey Boy later on.
He was definitely doing it.
Yeah, definitely. Something else I noticed about this match was that Vince McMahon would sometimes call moves incorrectly. And to me, it's like not like a deal breaker, you know, like when he calls an arm breaker, an arm bar, I get it. Like he's not calling it like a back body drop or something egregious. But at that time, Vince McMahon, I think had said to somebody that the names of the moves aren't that important because people don't watch the shows for the moves. They watch it for the characters and the storylines. And I can understand that, you know. To me, I've lost track of what all of the moves are called. So there's a lot of stuff that's done today, and I don't know the technical name for it. That doesn't increase my enjoyment of wrestling if I know, and it doesn't take away from my enjoyment if I don't. I just see a thing, and if I like it, I like it, and if I don't, I don't.
I would agree with that because there's so many moves that have like 4 and 5 different names. And depending on where they're at or who's calling it, might call it one thing and then somebody else is going to call it something completely different.
Yeah, the psychology of the match was, I thought, really good because Triple H was working over Mero's arm throughout most of the match.
He stuck to a body part and worked on it.
Yeah, which makes sense. Like, hey, I'm wanting to hurt this, you know, part of my opponent's body, and that's going to give me an advantage, and it's going to make me easier to win this match. None of his finishing move, nothing he did focused on the arm, which seemed odd, but it was still nice to see somebody have a match where you're working over a body part and you're trying to tell a story. But while he's working over the arm, Mero ends up taking a dive outside the ring, and it looks like he twisted his ankle.
It did. It looked like he hurt himself from it.
Yeah. And to me, after Mero is dumped outside the ring and he twists his ankle, you can kind of hear him scream, and then the match is over soon after that.
Pretty quickly. And I wonder if that was this finish that was planned for it, because it seemed a little off. They did the slingshot into the ring post and he pinned him, because normally he does that shooting star press, and if his ankle's jacked up, he's not going to be able to hit that.
Right. And it seemed like there were parts where Mero was losing focus, because you can hear Triple H pretty audibly yell, "Kick me in the gut." And then he's whipped off the ropes, and then Mero kicks him in the gut. So it seemed like Mark was not remembering what he needed to do, and it was up to Triple H to kind of save that match. And then maybe it was an audible from Triple H after Mero got hurt, where, you know, he got him back in the ring and he says, "Okay, well, we're ending this." And then they went and did the slingshot spot, which was a good save, but it still looked like a rushed finish.
And it added to the whole finishes of the night, where most of them were kind of just out of nowhere. There wasn't anything normal.
Right. And imagine a rushed finish in a match that's already like 16 minutes long, you know? I didn't really enjoy this one very much. And I should have, because, you know, Mero's not terrible and Triple H is really good. Even in the early days of his time in WWF. So then we went to a Davey Boy Smith interview where he's talking about Shawn Michaels and their match. And Owen was dressed like a cameraman. And it was explained that that night he had a one night only manager's license. So he was going to get to accompany Davey Boy Smith to the ring. It was weird because you had a Canadian in South Carolina wearing a Michigan jacket.
He was.
Yeah. It looked like they had just found these items backstage and they were like, well, Owen shouldn't wear his gear. What should he wear? And then Owen's like, I don't know. I don't have anything in my bag. Here, wear this.
That's what it honestly looked like. Like, it wasn't like planned out or anything. It was probably like last minute, hey, we're going to do this.
It's still so weird to go back and watch this stuff and see Mr. Perfect as a commentator or a backstage interviewer. Because it wouldn't be long after this where he would leave WWF and then go to WCW.
And go back in ring.
Yeah, and actually get to wrestle again, which went against his Lloyd's of London insurance policy that he had at the time. A lot of guys had those, where you paid your fee to have your insurance, and then if something happened that ended your wrestling career, the Lloyd's of London paid out a very generous sum of money so that you could live off of that for the rest of your life. And at the time, Rick Rude had cashed his in, and he never went back on that, but like Mr. Perfect and, Road Warrior Animal all went back on their insurance policies and wrestled again after cashing them out. And after that, Davey's on his way to the ring. And I don't know if anyone told Owen, because Owen had to run out and catch up with Davey.
He did. He wasn't like he was already there, part of the entrance.
Yeah. And for some reason, Davey was out there long enough to where his theme song played twice.
It was. And then you could also tell that they had just gotten power back, but they didn't get full power back because the whole lighting for that whole main event was very dim.
Yeah, and I did notice that. And when Michaels was on his way to the ring, they did something different that they don't typically do, especially during that time, where they show someone walking backstage and up to the gorilla position and then out
the curtain.
ring.
Yeah.
But they did it here with Shawn Michaels, and he bumps into Mr. Perfect, and they kind of have a moment where they're looking at each other before Michaels brushes him off and goes to the ring. And I thought that was strange, but then I remembered that they are going to have a rematch, Shawn Michaels and Davey Boy Smith the following month with Mr. Perfect as the referee. So this was also the Jose Lothario era for Shawn Michaels. I don't know what you think about it, but I don't think Jose brought anything special to Shawn Michaels.
I don't think he added to it at all. Like, it almost seemed like Shawn wanted to give his mentor a job and a payday more than anything. Right.
Because Jose really wasn't involved in the promos. He really wasn't involved much in the matches, save for an occasional spot that they had planned for him. He just seemed to be sort of like Shawn Michaels' Arnold Scullin.
Pretty much.
Arnold was with Bob Backlund, and he was, not very active, around the ring or in promos or whatever. And he was just sort of there. I don't know if he was there to add some sort of, he couldn't have been there to add any legitimacy to Shawn.
I don't see how.
No, because I'm trying to wrap my head around the presentation. Why creatively would you want Jose Lothario with Shawn Michaels all the time on screen? And he didn't do anything that would warrant me thinking that would be a good idea.
it wasn't manager-esque, and Sean was a baby. Sean could talk.
Yeah.
Sean didn't need him. It was just, hey, this is my mentor. I'm gonna try to get him a good payday.
Yeah. And do you remember the storyline to this match?
Was Sean was trying to sexually harass Bulldog's wife, allegedly. And the only thing I remember was they kept doing the build up to it, and Shawn Michaels would be like, "That's character assassination," and I'm getting damn tired of it.
Yeah. Don't disparage the good goddamn name of Shawn Michaels by ever thinking that he would flirt with someone's wife. Okay?
Not HBK.
No, he's a good, honest Christian boy who would never do such a thing. But that's the storyline of the match. That's the premise, right? Shawn Michaels was accused of flirting with Diana and trying to hook up with her. And before the match, Clarence Mason was Davey Boy Smith's and Diana's attorney. He cut a promo and he accused Shawn Michaels of, I have this here, attempted alienation of affection. Does that sound like something that's real?
I was going to say, is that a real thing?
It didn't sound like anything that was real to me, right? I heard that and I'm like, oh, that's fake. Yep. No, that's real. It's a real crime that people can be charged for if they, I don't think anyone gets charged of this anymore, but the crime is that you are trying to interfere with someone else's marriage and break them up.
They probably don't get the summons right before they're about to wrestle on pay-per-view either.
No, they don't. You know, oh, hey, before your wrestling match, guess what? Here's your summons. And then typically when that happens, that person doesn't also rip it up in front of the lawyer.
I don't think that would go well in the court of law.
No. And I don't know if Shawn Michaels knew, but ripping it up doesn't mean that you get out of the court case.
Beating Bulldog at King of the Ring did, though. So, I mean...
Well, yes, wrestling matches have always been, they go hand in hand with the law. There has been legal precedents set through wrestling matches all throughout history.
Pretty much.
Yeah. You can be made to be someone's servant by losing a wrestling match.
Ironclad at that point.
You can also get custody of a child through
You can, the ladder match.
Exactly. So professional wrestling has always been a great way of solving real world problems, especially legal disputes, 100%. Now, something that was also cool, a fun fact is Clarence Mason was actually a real attorney. And he had gotten his name for a combination of Clarence Thomas, who is a really ancient Supreme Court justice. He was old in the 90s, and he's still...
No, he's older now.
His cadaver is still working in the Supreme Court today. And Perry Mason, who is not a shoot lawyer, he only played one on TV. But yeah, he was an actual lawyer. And from an interview that he did, he said that to do WWF, he had to use sick days at work so that he could show up to TV on Monday nights. And eventually, like, the firm that he was working for got tired of him doing all of that, and he ended up quitting so he could focus on WWF full time.
Probably the pay was probably a little bit better.
You think so at the time? 96?
Maybe not.
Before they blew up?
That's true. It probably would have been similar, but you're right. It probably wasn't no $1 million contracts that he was getting.
Yeah, and it was Clarence Mason.
True.
You know, Shawn Michaels wasn't even making astronomical money.
No.
He would eventually, you know, but at the time, this was WWF recovering from that drought they had for years, where it was like after the steroid trial and during the new generation, where, you know, the product by, you know, critically was panned as being mostly dull because of all the hokey characters and hokey storylines and all around hokiness.
And adding to the hokiness, did you love the intros where you had the In Your House logo on a dog chain barking?
Yes. I felt like that added to my experience, and it was...
At that point, you knew what you were getting.
yeah, you knew what you were getting. You know, even in the 90s, that was some bad visual effects. Yeah. So the match itself, seems to be a consensus that this match was good.
I didn't think so. I didn't think it was probably Bulldog's worst match he'd ever had, but that probably had a lot to do with Shawn Michaels. I even thought years prior, when Shawn won the Intercontinental title, he beat the British Bulldog on Saturday Night's Main Event. I thought that match was even better than this one.
Yeah, I think so too. This match to me was not enjoyable at all. In fact, there's a Sportster article, because when I was, I don't just show up here, Russell.
You're prepared. You have notes.
Okay, I'm a broadcast journalist. Okay.
You are, with all your notes.
I am. I have. Can you hear that? Okay, these are my notes. Well prepared. And during my research, I found an article from the Sportster where they ranked this match as one of the best Shawn Michaels matches of his first world title reign. And I don't know who paid them.
That's a rough.
If they had suffered a brain injury or what, because this was awful. This was this should have been called In Your House 8, Beware of Dog Shit, is what it should have been. Was that funny?
That was good.
Yeah. I'm going to pat myself on the back for that one. Okay. Because we're going to get into why this was so bad here. But the first thing that really stuck out to me when I was watching it was how long some of these holds were applied.
Which was probably, if I had to guess, Michaels trying to get Bulldog into the match. Hey, we need to do this. We need to do that.
Yep.
Probably guiding him through what he needed to do. So he needed that extra time on there.
It absolutely was that, because you could see Shawn trying to communicate with him, and Bulldog, for some reason, was not focused at all. He had a headlock. The first headlock that I saw in the match, Michaels had a headlock on for over a minute. Over a minute of this match is a headlock. And you can see him try to communicate with Davey Boy, trying to tell him something to do. And then not even a couple minutes after that, Shawn has a short arm scissors on Davey for a minute and a half.
That was a long time, yeah.
Yeah, and he's trying to, talk to him then too. Maybe he's trying to give him instructions. Maybe Davey was gassed and, out of, just tired. I don't know. But the whole structure of the match seemed weird because it was the heel fighting from the bottom to the babyface.
Mm-hmm. And Bulldog was the bigger guy, so Bulldog should have been the aggressor more than he was in these moves for a longer period of time. Like, Shawn was a lot smaller compared to him, so you would think like a short arm scissors, because he did it technically he did it at Saturday Night's Main Event. He picked up Shawn and did like a back suplex with him.
Right. Shawn kept getting more and more frustrated with Davey, and Davey ended up getting a headlock on Shawn. You remember the Davey Boy headlock?
I don't think it lasted that long, though, did it?
It did. It lasted like a whole over 2 minutes.
That's right.
Yeah, and in that headlock, Davey's grip was not very good. So Shawn's head was not wrapped tightly with Davey's arms, to give the illusion that he's squeezing Shawn's head. So if you could imagine this, if you haven't watch the match, Davy's arm, and I'm actually like doing this with my arms, and you people can't see this at all, so I don't know why I'm doing this, but Davy's right arm is like resting way under Sean's chin. So it looks like he's not applying any pressure at all and doesn't have a hold of him whatsoever. Sean, you could see him smacking the bottom of Davy's arm to get it up into
move
place.
it in place.
Yeah, to move it into place so it goes under his chin and makes the hold look believable. And he kept doing that. And then there's a point where Sean just gives up and he's in the headlock and he just kind of sits there like, what's going on, you know? And you could see him like just totally frustrated, talking to the ref, not selling at all, which is something that we've seen Sean do a lot from this era.
Yeah. If he's not happy with something, he lets them know in the ring.
Yeah, exactly. Which is a contrast to what Bret Hart would do, which is try to make the best out of a bad situation. If things weren't going the way that Sean needed them to go, through no fault of his own, he would have a tantrum in the ring. And this was a little tantrum that we saw from Sean here. And, you know, eventually that hold gets mercifully ended because that was really hard to sit through. And Davey, after that, was in the wrong place for certain things, and you could still see Sean loses his cool. The ref bump. What'd you think of the ref bump?
I didn't like it because the one thing I don't like about a lot of these in your houses, which we'll cover totally at a different time.
Oh, we will?
I think
some of those are bad.
They are pretty bad. But a lot of those matches were built to build up the next pay-per-view. Like, you paid money. If the fans, granted, yes, they paid less money, but yet they still paid money to watch you build up the next show.
Right.
And that's exactly what this was a build up to the King of the Ring. The double pin with the back suplex, both people's shoulders down, and the match becomes a draw.
That finish was fantastic. Loved that finish. It sucks that we had to sit through that whole match, which ended up being, how long was this thing? It was
17 minutes.
Oh, Jesus Christ. 17 minutes and 21 seconds. But the double pin finish was awesome because it looked like Davey won and he was holding the belt. And then, you know, Diana's outside the ring with the belt.
Upside down.
Holding it upside down. She didn't bother to look at the belt. What would she know? She's not from a wrestling family or anything. She doesn't know the way belts were supposed to look on TV. And duh. And then another referee comes out and says, no, Sean actually won this match. Gorilla Monsoon comes down to the ring. Great shot.
That was the best thing with that Diana holding the belt was Monsoon taking it out of her hands.
Gorilla Monsoon is walking behind Diana as she's standing in the entranceway with the belt upside down, looking defiant against the adulterer, Shawn Michaels. And he snatches the belt from her hands and marches to the ring. And this made all of this have like an added air of legitimacy because Gorilla Monsoon's standing there talking to the referees and he's saying, I want to hear what you have to say. And then the first referee would tell him what his take was. Okay. And then he points at the next one. He gets his take. He considers the information he has and then he makes a decision. He doesn't just go out there and make the decision because that would make the whole thing seem hokey and fake, right? Like, we all know that was supposed to be the finish and it was supposed to be ruled a no contest so that there is a rematch, but it's giving us the visual of there being some sort of dispute and a decision being made that added to that finish and made it better for me.
That was the best part of the match was the finish. Granted, I didn't like it because how it was used, but if you're going to do something like that, they did it about as best as they could. it looked solid.
Yeah. That was, an excellent way to end a really, 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 really crummy match. So then the next one, what was the next match?
Then the next one, they jumped to Beware a Dog 2, which whole new set, whole new announce team with Mr. Perfect and Jim Ross, if I remember correctly, was doing the commentary for this one. They still had the whole intro with the dog on the chain with the "In Your House" sign, which made you know this is going to be terrible. And then they opened this one with Steve Austin and Savio Vega in a Caribbean strap match. One thing I thought was interesting with this match was, and granted, I'm sure DiBiase was going to WCW anyway. It was a matter of time of them trying to figure out how. But since Savio Vega beat Austin in the dark on that Beware Dog 1 the next night on Raw, DiBiase said he was so confident that Austin was going to win that if he lost, then he would leave WWE or WWF at the time for good. So granted, yes, they probably would have found a different way to do it, but because the power went out, that gave them that chance to, okay, let's make this happen now.
I don't think that they referenced the finish to any of the matches that were dark at the pay-per-view, except this one.
That was about the only one they referenced anything about. You didn't know anything about anything else.
Yeah. Odd. Another thing to note is that at the beginning of the match, Steve Austin was announced as Stone Cold Steve Austin. So this is an early appearance as Stone Cold, still managed by Ted DiBiase. But if you don't know, when he was managed by Ted DiBiase originally in WWF, he was the
Ringmaster.
I don't remember what the character was. Was he just supposed to be? I'm good at wrestling.
He was just kind of, I'm good at wrestling.
Oh, okay.
So DiBiase was with him to give him the $1 million title, to give him something to legitimately say, hey, I'm great at wrestling. I'm the ringmaster.
Man, riveting stuff. Wow. Chili McFreeze be damned. He became Stone Cold Steve Austin, and that stipulation to me did seem rushed. Mm-hmm. It felt like, oh my God, he's leaving tomorrow.
Yeah, it almost felt like they were banking on something to happen that was going to push him out of WWE, like maybe something they were going to do on Raw that night. Mm-hmm. But since this happened, well, this was thrown in the cards, let's make something out of it.
Yeah, that's what it seemed like to me. Maybe they did have, some sort of segment planned on Raw where him and Steve Austin were going to have a falling out or whatever. Maybe Vega attacks him, who knows? But then you can't have that because you assumed that a lot of people didn't get to see the finishes to those matches because they were completely in the dark. So then you have to have your makeups, and they can't be on Raw. Because you hadn't planned for that. So you have them on the night after Raw. And I don't remember, after this show, after we review this, I'm going to pull up the card for the Raw after Beware of Dog, and we're going to compare that to the first 2-hour Nitro.
That'll be interesting.
Okay, yeah. So this DiBiase leaving situation was interesting because after he left, he became the 4th member of the NWO.
He did. For a short time, he managed the Steiners and then went to the NWO, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
Because he screwed up. I still will remember this promo to this day. It was right after the Steiners won the tag team titles. DiBiase, as his manager on Nitro, said, the Steiner brothers, the new WW short pause WCW tag team champions.
Yeah. I sidebar, I didn't like him managing the Steiners.
I wasn't a big fan of it. And then there's also another secret thing to this that you might not have known too. I don't know if you watched Saturday Night much during that time.
Yes.
But they would always show previews of next week's Saturday Night. Well, somebody in the truck screwed up because whenever I guess they filmed WCW Saturday Night multiple at a time. So they showed clips for next week's Saturday Night, and it was the Steiners were wrestling Harlem Heat, maybe if I remember correctly. I don't remember who they were wrestling on Saturday Night, but you watched them, this clip they showed, the Steiners walked out with the tag belts around their waist.
Oof.
And they were supposed to be wrestling on Monday Nitro for the tag team titles. So WCW screwed it up twice because DiBiase announced the wrong name of the company almost. And then the company showed them with the belts before they even won the belts.
Yeah, I can't say that there's anything that DiBiase did in his time in WCW and we won't spend too much time on this because we got that match to talk about, but I don't remember, what was your favorite Ted DiBiase moment in WCW?
I don't think there was one other than him screwing up that promo. And that's no fault of DiBiase.
Sure. But WCW didn't need him on camera. It just seemed like a time when Eric Bischoff wanted as many people from WWE as he could get. Does that sound familiar? And he wanted just anybody and everybody, from Scott Hall and Kevin Nash to Virgil. Okay, anybody he can get his hands on, he'd sign. And then he would just figure out what to do with them later. And managing the Steiners and being the fourth member of the NWO just seemed like stuff that DiBiase was thrown into to give him something to do.
Same with Virgil. He was just kind of thrown in there, but at least he got more TV time there than he did in WWE.
Yeah, definitely. He needs that meat sauce money. And the other stipulation of this match was if Vega lost, he had to be DiBiase's chauffeur. So the prize just doesn't seem to be equal all the way around.
Not really.
Yeah. Hey, you have to leave if your guy loses, but like if I win or if you win, I just have to be like your chauffeur for a bit. I got to drive a car.
Driving around with the hat. He would have to wear the hat though.
Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, the segment with the stipulation ended with a close-up of the chauffeur hat. And it was, I don't know, I don't know if you could watch that match and be like, yeah, that's probably definitely a strong possibility that this is going to end with Steve Austin winning and Savio Vega being the chauffeur. This completely smelled like we're going to do the match over with light. Mm-hmm. And it's going to be almost the same stuff.
And it probably was, if I had to guess. Now, I actually thought this match was pretty decent. I felt like the time limit was, again, too long. I mean, you got 21 minutes on this match, which is probably way too extensive for what Vega was capable of. No knock on Vega. He was pretty good. Mm-hmm. But the entertainment value of him as a character wasn't worth 21 minutes.
No, and this thing definitely did drag. But this was the best match on the show.
It was.
There were a lot of moments in this match that I was kind of like, I can't believe they did this. They were using that Caribbean strap, and they were hitting each other in the face and neck.
They were going at each other with that strap.
Yeah. They were just wearing each other out, and you'd think normally you see in a wrestling match there's some sort of gentleman's agreement where you're not going to hit somebody in the face with the weapon or the neck, and then they totally did. So I don't know if they had some sort of thing planned out beforehand where they were like, hey, I don't care if you pop me in the eyeball with that strap, go nuts, okay? Yep, absolutely. Yep. Let's be snug tonight. This wasn't even snug. This was whack. I'm going to
There was
smack you
welts all over them.
across the face with this leather strap. And I mean, that definitely made it more enjoyable, and it made it easier to sit through, although it was pretty hard at times to sit there and watch all of it because it went way too long.
And I liked, this is going to sound weird because I liked the finish, but I didn't because it was another fuck finish, basically. You had the weird finish with Triple H and Mero. You had the weird finish with Shawn and Davey. They were touching each turnbuckle at the same time. Then Vega last second jumps over Austin and hits the last one. So drama-wise, it was good, but it's like there wasn't anything in the show that was that normal. Other than the Vader Yokozuna finish was about the only one that had just a regular old finish to it.
Yeah, the finish to the match was another really good finish. Austin was dragging Vega, and as he was dragging, like the stipulation of the match, both men are connected with a leather strap, and you had to incapacitate your opponent, and you had to walk around to all four corners of the ring and tag the turnbuckles. If you tagged four of them, you were the winner. So Austin smacks the first buckle. What he doesn't know is that as he's dragging Savio Vega, Vega is also tagging those same turnbuckles behind him. And then when he gets close to the fourth buckle, Vega struggles, jumps up, falls over Steve Austin and smacks the fourth buckle and gets the win. Really, really, really cool finish. Loved it. Best part of the match.
It was.
Yeah. Because there was another moment in that match that just it didn't make any sense. So Austin hits one buckle, two buckle. He's about to go to the third buckle, which he could totally hit. Then he decides not to hit the buckle and goes back over to Vega to pick him up. Why would you do that?
You would think you would just end the match. But yeah, it was like you could tell he was trying to draw it out longer. So they kept going.
And in this makeup show, I think this was televised, right?
This was on pay-per-view. These three matches were on pay-per-view.
Okay.
Now, I don't know the stipulation because if you bought the first one, how did your pay-per-view company provider really know in 2 days? Like, you can't send them a bill. You can't send them this. Mm-hmm. I mean, I guess you could call them and they could look it up and see. But did you have to buy this one too? Did you have to pay $40 for this shit show? Or did you get that second part for free?
I don't know. I'd be interested to know that too. Because ordering pay-per-view at that time was complicated.
It was.
You couldn't just get a remote control and go through a menu on your TV and select it and watch it. And then it bills you. You had to call your cable company, wait to get on the line with somebody. Then you had to tell that person, I want to watch In Your House 8, Beware of Dog. And then they're like, okay, all right, what's that? And then you explain it to them that it's a wrestling pay-per-view from WWF, Shawn Michaels and Davey Boy. Okay, all right. Yeah, here it is. And then they have to give your cable box permission to air it. And the cable box, you had to have this special box hooked up to your TV to even accept, pay-per-view stuff. And it was very convoluted, not very easy, not streamlined, as it were. So I could only imagine that there were a lot of people, if they wanted to see that stuff, they had to double dip and pay extra. And
probably not so much for In Your House, but something I remember the first time I ever watched a WrestleMania, because that was the first pay-per-view I ever ordered. WrestleMania was kind of that whole scenario of what he explained is exactly right. But when you wanted to watch a WrestleMania, you couldn't just call your cable provider 5 minutes before Mania had to start. No. because you were on hold for a good 15 or 20 minutes when it was like a WrestleMania or a Royal Rumble, Survivor Series. You had to call in about 30 minutes ahead at least to make sure you got somebody before the show started.
Right. Another good spot in this match, I don't know if you remember this, but Austin had the $1 Million Dream on Savio. And Savio, sort of a la Roddy Piper and Bret Hart at WrestleMania,
Kicked off
the buckle, but he didn't kick off the buckle in like a graceful way.
No.
He fell on Austin with all of his body weight on the mat. Every second of this match looked painful and stiff. It was like that aspect of it was awesome. It did drag on too long, but boy, they went out of their way to make, this as believable as it could be, which is crazy considering this is the second time they did that match in 3 days.
And match of the night for sure, or match of the 2 nights.
You would have thought they would have just phoned it in and said, I'm frustrated. I don't want to do this twice.
Yeah.
But no, they killed it. After the match was over, Savio Vega grabbed the mic and got the crowd to start singing "Na Na Hey Hey Goodbye," which
DiBiase lost himself.
Yeah, which is from urban legend, the mythos around Vince McMahon. The lore is that he really loves that song because there are a lot of instances throughout WWE's history where they've used that song when people have lost matches where they have to leave or someone's fired or whatever. I think they even used it on him.
I think they did, yeah.
Yeah. Really fun, finish to the match. Then we go to the backstage area and Shawn Michaels is trying to figure out the internet.
Oh, yes. They were doing the AOL chat thing where they could chat with the WWE superstar.
Shawn Michaels, this is 1996, okay? Shawn Michaels is trying to figure out the internet, and he is chicken pecking on the keyboard.
Talking to fans that are talking to him. Instead of worrying about getting a lawyer because he just got served papers.
No, he's got to chat with kids on the internet, okay? Shawn, you're being sued. Shouldn't you be worried about that? No, there's kids I need to talk to on AOL Instant Messenger.
They want to ask me questions.
Yeah. And I'm going to respond to them, and it's going to take me
1 click at a time.
A whole goddamn year to send a message. Oh, man. Well, the show picked up after this.
Did it?
It did. It was Vader time. We got Vader versus Yokozuna.
The ironic thing is the only match out of Beware a Dog 2 that had a different ending was this match. Beware a Dog 1 in the dark, Yokozuna beat Vader.
Yeah.
But Vader beat Yokozuna, which makes me wonder, was it the plan from the beginning, or was it kind of one of those things, well, we're redoing the match, you won one. Let's change the finish at least so it doesn't look completely hokey. Let's give Vader the win.
Yeah, that might have been it. This match was, I don't want to say it was terrible, okay? I don't know what the Dave Meltzer star rating system said this match was, but it was probably like -8, because it had 2 big guys and it didn't happen in the Tokyo Dome.
You were not unlocking princess castles with these stars.
You were not. Okay, there were not enough flippy-doos. No one had their hands in their pockets. It was not going to be a 5-star banger from Dave Meltzer. But I thought the psychology of the match was there. It wasn't like so unbelievable. And it was also mercifully short.
It was. Yokozuna's physical abilities that he used to have wasn't there either, and I think that was the downfall of this match.
At the time, I think they had billed him when he came to the ring as 621 pounds. Now, wrestling weights and heights are always like...
exaggerated, but he's probably in the 5s at least. if
Yeah.
not around the 6s.
That's still, a very unhealthy weight. And they would later push him to go to Duke University and go through a weight loss program that he was very unwilling to do. And he would end up leaving WWE later that year after Survivor Series. Survivor Series would be his last appearance in WWF before he died. The setup to the match was interesting because Vader, prior to Beware of Dog, had attacked Yokozuna's leg. And do you remember how they had to stretcher Yoko out?
I remember them stretching him. I don't remember how, because I remember it wasn't a normal stretcher.
A forklift.
That's right, they did.
Yep. The medical professionals that were on hand said that the only way, we have never had to deal with someone who was this big before. So the only thing that we need to do is we need to get a fucking forklift out to pick this guy up and carry. The forklift is going to put him into the back of the ambulance. They're not going to drive the forklift all the way to the hospital.
I would think, I could see them drive. They're just driving down the interstate with the forklift, him rolling around on the forklift.
We're going to a medical facility. It's okay. Don't worry.
They'll put one of those little sirens on the forklift. And
Yeah. Wee woo, wee woo, wee woo. Everyone's like pulling over to the shoulder because the forklift's behind them, going 10. With Yoko on it, it was
probably 5.
It was probably 5. Let's cut it in half. To be fair, probably 5 miles an hour. He's dead by the time he gets there. He's dead from the leg injury. So Vader had worked over the leg in the match, and everything like Vader did seemed throughout his whole career seemed very like believable, especially when he would box somebody with his, like, he would like club his fists up. He wouldn't like close his fists, but he would just like club them up, and then he would box your ears.
You'd get like the inside of his hand, and it looked very stiff.
Oh yeah. And he would just box your ears, and it looked legit. Like, it looked painful every single time he did it. Because he's just this big dude, and he hits you in the side of the head. And Vader's stuff looked really good. Yoko definitely lost several steps at this point in his career. Because a lot of people like shit on Yokozuna, but I really, really liked him.
His early stuff was great. The only thing that was memorable that I remember out of this match from Yoko's side was the Uranagi. Just because a lot of the Samoans used a lot of the same moves, and they just kind of repackaged them. So seeing him do that was like the first time I'd ever seen someone in that family do that move that The Rock ended up later turning into the Rock Bottom.
Right. They had a Samoan man playing a Japanese man. Okay. But the Yokozuna character, like for me when I was a kid, totally worked.
It did.
Yeah, I hated him. He beat up all my favorite wrestlers, but he looked like a big scary guy because he didn't talk. At this point in his career, he was away from Mr. Fuji. He was away from Jim Cornette, and he was talking. And it just didn't click.
It wasn't as good because like he was still trying to do the Japanese thing, so it didn't resonate with as a babyface with the American audience. Because before, the only thing you really heard him yell was "Bonsai."
Right. Yeah. And, Vader would end up, winning the match 8 minutes, 53 seconds. And it wasn't, terrible, but, is it Shawn Michaels and Bret Hart?
No.
No. It's close, though, right?
Maybe not.
No, it's not. Yeah. I mean, if you slam your head into the wall, we're not advocating you do that. But if you wanted to really consider that match on par with Bret and Shawn that year from WrestleMania, you would just suffer a head injury really bad, and then You could, yeah.
Then you might be able to think it is.
So then Ted DiBiase has just been fired, okay, because Steve Austin has lost the Caribbean strap match. And what does he do? If you guessed go to his hotel before leaving to the airport, you'd be wrong. He is this recently fired man is now backstage taking calls on the Superstar line. Which was, I guess, the last contraction. Like, we didn't catch the fine print in the promo where he's like, if you lose this match, I'm gone, ... after I talk to the fans on the Superstar
After
line.
they insult me for not having a job anymore.
Yeah. But yeah, Yoko missed the bonsai drop in the match with Vader, and then Vader hit the Vader bomb. Good, logical finish.
The finish made sense, and that was the only finish that had a normal finish that whole night.
Yes. And another, like, there was a commercial that came on after this. Do you remember the commercial?
It was a King of the Ring commercial.
Yes. If you want to see what a fever dream looks like, okay, watch a New Generation pay-per-view promo video, and you'd see what a fever dream looks like. This one had Jerry Lawler dressed in his king garb, and then there are like peasant children begging him for more food. And they say, please, sir, can I have some more? And he doesn't give them more gruel, to feed their bellies. No, but then Elvis pops up with a bunch of other dead celebrities.
That were kings.
Apparently, yeah. And Elvis puts Jerry Lawler in his place. Yeah. I don't know. But you got to watch it. It's worth it. You may be able to find it on YouTube.
So watching that commercial at that time when we were at that age, seeing that commercial wouldn't have made you be like, Mom, I got to buy King of the Ring?
Yeah. Mom, we have to spend an ungodly amount of money for this pay-per-view. This one here, the lights went out, but I'm pretty sure the lights and the utilities are going to work in this building. You have to buy me this one. Look at it. It's got Elvis and Jerry Lawler. Yeah, okay. My mom didn't know what a pay-per-view was back then. Okay? I'd explain it to her, and she'd look at me like I got two heads. Jeez, I still don't know if she knows.
Maybe, maybe not.
Mom, if you're listening, I'm sorry. So then the next match, the merciful end to the show was what?
Goldust versus Undertaker for the Intercontinental title in a casket match, which Goldust's whole title reign to me seemed weird because the pay-per-view before this at In Your House, he defended it against the Ultimate Warrior, which is a weird person to defend the IC title against. And then the Undertaker being Intercontinental Champion. And it doesn't make sense to me aesthetically because as a fan, you want to see a match where, hey, this person could win. Could the Undertaker win? Yes. But the title of the Intercontinental title to me was always the workhorse title. The people that were the better wrestlers that were up and coming to be the next champion. The Undertaker is not going to have a 5-star match with Kurt Hennig. His match with Bret Hart is going to be good, and his match with Hennig would be good too, but it's not going to be Intercontinental level good. It's going to be main event world title good. It's going to be a different format to the match.
And, it was at a time when a lot of Intercontinental champions, not the majority, but a lot of them would go from that title and end up becoming world champion. Randy Savage, Ultimate Warrior, Bret Hart, these guys would go from having that title to, winning the big one and being on top of the company and, being in the main event. But some of them weren't, like Mr. Perfect, Honky Tonk Man. These people weren't ever, at that top level. But I don't know what WWE's plans for Goldust were when he came in, but I felt like him being Intercontinental Champion was very fitting. It was very good.
I liked him as champion. It's just they picked weird opponents for him. He went from winning the belt, then his first big feud was against Roddy Piper, which was a non-title match, and then the Ultimate Warrior, which he lost by countout in like 2 minutes, I think, and then he went to winning this casket match against The Undertaker.
Yeah. Odd match. Wasn't bad.
It wasn't bad. It was just odd.
Yeah, odd. For more reasons than just that. Mankind calling Goldust mommy.
Was strange.
Strange. Yep. And Goldust playing into it, you know, like, yeah, I'm your mom. You know, sure. Yeah. I'm going to tell this insane person who rips his hair out that I'm his mom. Okay. You got to be weird yourself to want to
Be down for that.
Yeah. It's just, no.
And again, the finish I felt like was about as good as it could be for that match, but with all the other crazy finishes that happened that night, it would have fit better in another night. Like, I don't know, just I want to see at least a couple of the matches in normal. This one, the way it ended was about the best they could do, but you add all the other fuck finishes on and you get this.
Yeah, it was, you had another match that ended with a screwy finish. And, you know, when you're watching a show, at least to me, when I'm watching a show and a lot of the matches are ending with distractions or interference or whatever, it takes me out of it, you know, because I'd like to see the majority of the matches end in a clean way, you know, even if it's the heel hooks the tights or puts their feet on the rope, you know. But just to be having interference or distractions from people outside the ring, you see enough of that, I get taken out of it. And that's what happened here. Foreshadowing. Mankind helped Goldust again beat The Undertaker because he did it when everything was dark, and then he did it when the lights were on.
Which, if I was The Undertaker, wouldn't you be expecting, in theory, wouldn't you be expecting you open the casket and there's Mankind going to be in there? And it's like, holy shit, he got me once. He got me again.
He's probably not going to do it again.
He's not going to do it again.
No, there's no, oh, yeah, there he is. I'm fucked, you know? And then Mankind beats him up, puts the claw on him, shoves him in the casket, and then Goldust is the winner.
I did like the gold casket with the Goldust star on it.
Yes, which there is a video on WWE's, it's either WWE or Up Up Down Down's YouTube channels. And you can go there and you can see Tyler Breeze getting a tour of the WWE warehouse. And in that warehouse, they have all of the old Undertaker caskets because his character used to make the casket. You see him making the casket for his opponent. And I remember watching him make the casket for Yokozuna.
I remember those promos.
And you saw him in this dilapidated shed, you know, working, you know, with a hammer and a nail, and he's making this casket, and it seemed very personal, and he's going to make that, and he's going to put his opponent that he hates so much inside that thing. And that was a cool touch. I don't think I think they stopped having The Undertaker make the caskets after this match with Goldust.
I think so.
Could be wrong, but we were all deprived of actually seeing WWE redo Ahmed Johnson and Jerry Lawler.
They didn't do that one, and they didn't redo. There was another one, Jake the Snake and Justin Bradshaw. They didn't redo that one.
Yep, no, they didn't. Or Ultimate Warrior and Owen Hart.
Yeah, they didn't do that one.
Such a shame. Such a shame. So anyway, that concludes In Your House 8, Beware of Dog. Russell's recommendations are so far terrible. Okay.
You need to watch it because there's a lot of history to this. It's never happened before. Probably, hopefully, I think they're probably better prepared where a company it would never happen again.
Yeah, yeah. But if you don't have anything better to do, okay, and you don't mind watching some bad wrestling watch Beware of Dog.
Or if you have seen it and you liked it, let us know your thoughts on why it was good.
So we can block you.
Subscribe first and like it, and then we'll block you.
And then we'll block you because you liked this thing. Okay? You piece of shit. All right, so that concludes our review, the KR Show review of In Your House 8, Beware of Dog. And thanks for tuning in.
We'll see you next time.
All right, peace. Wee woo, wee woo, wee woo.